She was just minutes away from saying, "I do," in front of hundreds of guests, flashing cameras and blinding spotlights. $1 million wedding, wrapped in luxury and blackmail. But then, just before the ceremony, an anonymous note slid under the door. "Leave now." With no time to think, she grabbed her dress and ran down the emergency stairs. She ran from the wedding. She ran from control. She ran from the abuse. She got into the car of a stranger. Leather jacket, cap pulled low. A dangerous past and a hideout invisible even to satellites. What Megan didn't know was that behind that forced wedding and that note, there was something much bigger. And now, with the whole world hunting for her, with no way to go back, she must figure out who to trust. Fight for the truth, for her freedom, and for the feelings that have just begun to grow. After all, who is the man who saved her? Why did he do it? And more importantly, was all of this part of the plan? Dive into this story, and at the end, tell us in the comments, what was the moment that gripped you the most? And give it a rating from 0 to 10. The hotel room was silent, except for the muffled sound of violins coming from the garden, where the guests were already taking their seats. Megan stared at the mirror, as if facing a stranger. The dress was perfect, the makeup flawless, the ceremony a spectacle worthy of magazine covers. But inside, everything in her was screaming to run. She had been crying in silence since the early hours of the day. Her chest was tight. Just minutes remained before she had to go downstairs, when a plain envelope slid under the door. Inside, only 2 words and a number. "Leave now." She thought about ignoring it. But now, with her heart pounding and her hands shaking, she just couldn't. She grabbed her phone and dialed the number without thinking. "You have exactly 20 seconds before someone notices," a male voice said on the other end. "Emergency stairs. Side parking lot. Black car." Megan hung up. She kicked off her heels and put on a pair of white sneakers she had among her things. She grabbed the dress with both hands, opened the hotel room door, and ran. The cameras, the guests, and the press were all focused on the main entrance. She dodged a few staff members, slipped through a side door, and headed down the stairs. The dress dragged on the steps. When she reached the side parking lot, the car was already waiting. Black, tinted windows, engine running. Megan hesitated for 3 seconds. She paused, took a breath, opened the back door, and got in. The man behind the wheel said nothing. He wore a cap, a leather jacket, his face partially hidden by shadow. He hit the gas without even looking at her. Silence. Only the sound of the engine, and the racing heartbeat of someone who had no idea if she'd made the right decision. His name was Peter. Megan didn't know that yet. She didn't know where she was going, or why this man had decided to help her. But she knew one thing: any destination had to be better than the altar. 8 months earlier, she was still the darling of the fashion world. Magazine covers, VIP at events, international campaigns. But all of it came at a cost. Her father funded every appearance. He was the one signing the deals, paying behind the scenes, keeping the shine alive, without her ever knowing. When his helicopter crashed during bad weather one morning, everything fell apart. She and her mother, Amelia, realized they knew nothing about bank accounts, companies, or investments. The money that once seemed endless started to disappear. Amelia panicked, not for losing her husband, but at the thought of losing her status. That's when Nissan appeared. Wealthy, powerful, owner of a business empire, passed down through generations. He showed up as a family friend, offered help, gained their trust, then took control, and finally a proposal: keep the family's lifestyle, in exchange for Megan's hand in marriage. Amelia agreed without hesitation. Megan tried to resist, but the emotional blackmail was constant. Your father would be proud, they said. You can save our family, her mother whispered, placing the weight of everything on her shoulders. By the time she realized, Megan was engaged. In the months that followed, she lost everything she had for herself. Campaigns, social media, friends, freedom. She only left the house with bodyguards, only said what Nissan allowed, only smiled when he told her to. At a gala event they both attended, she tried to leave early, had a panic attack. Nissan took her backstage, grabbed her arm tightly, and whispered in her ear, "You embarrass me again, and you and your mother will end up on the streets." She returned to the ballroom smiling. The makeup always hid the bruises. It wasn't the first time. In the back seat of the car, Megan stared out the window, watching the city pass, as if she were outside her own life. Her phone vibrated. Messages, calls, the ceremony on pause, the press confused, her mother desperate, Nissan probably furious. She turned off the phone and threw it out the window while the car was moving. 30 minutes later, the car entered an abandoned port area. It stopped in front of a metal warehouse. Peter got out, opened the back door, and spoke for the first time. "You're off the radar here. You're safe." She got out without saying a word, looked around. They went inside. From the outside, the place looked like a rundown warehouse. But inside, it hid a modern home with an industrial style. Warm lighting, low furniture, tall windows. There are clean towels in the bathroom, clothes in the closet, food in the fridge. Stay as long as you need. He got back in the car and drove away without saying anything else. Megan was alone. She still didn't know who he was or why she had trusted him. But for the first time in a long while, she felt something close to relief. And for now, that was enough. Megan spent the first few hours pacing back and forth inside the warehouse. The place was clean, safe, silent. The kitchen was simple but fully stocked. The rooms smelled of wood and coffee. The hot shower worked. There were fresh towels in the bathroom, and a set of basic clothes in the closet. Sweatpants, a loose t-shirt, a pair of sneakers. All the right size. It was strange. No one knew she wore size 6. Or, someone knew very well. After showering, she put on the gray sweatpants, tied her hair up, and sat at the edge of the bed. She looked around. No cameras. No noise. For the first time in months, she was alone, but not at peace. She needed to understand who the man that pulled her out of the wedding was, and why. She picked up a landline phone on the kitchen counter, dialed the only number she remembered, her mother's. It rang 3 times, then disconnected. She tried again. Nothing. Outside, the sound of the car engine announced that Peter was back. She rushed to the door, opened it before he even parked. "Who are you?" He stepped out of the car carrying a bag. "I'm the one who stopped you from ruining your life forever. I want answers." He looked at her. There was calm in his eyes, but firmness in his stance. "Come in." In the kitchen, he placed 2 bottles of water on the table, sat across from her. "My name is Peter. I was investigating the Nissan family. Money laundering, fake contracts, an entire system built on lies. What does that have to do with me?" "Directly and indirectly. During one of the investigations, I got a tip from a security guard at the mansion. He said you were being controlled, threatened. Told me about the bodyguards following you, about the bruises that appeared and disappeared." Megan looked away. "He quit and came to me. Wanted to leave without burning bridges, but without carrying the guilt. He gave me records, photos, reports of what was happening inside the house. Even the blueprint of the hotel you'd be staying at on the wedding day." Peter picked up his phone and showed her images. There they were, her and Nissan at various events. But they weren't internet photos. They were from security cameras, backstage shots. In one of them, Megan was in a dressing room, looking worn out, holding her left arm. She remembered the moment. It was the night of the threat. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "Because I've seen this happen before. And when someone has enough power to buy silence, the only way out is to act from the outside. What do you get out of it? Nothing. Or maybe peace." She took a deep breath. "And now? Do you think he'll leave me alone?" "He's furious. There's a reporter at the hotel door, columnists posting real-time updates. Your mother is panicking. The press still thinks you fainted. And when they find out I ran away, he'll turn your escape into a public scandal. Say you had a breakdown. He'll use your image against you, and your mother will follow the script he writes." Megan lowered her head. Her throat ached. "I can't show my face." "Not yet," Peter confirmed. "But you won't stay hidden forever. I just need a few days to move some pieces." "Like what?" He stood from his chair. "Like taking control out of his hands. The same way he took it out of yours." Late that afternoon, Megan turned on the TV. She didn't recognize herself in the footage. The news spoke of the wedding of the year interrupted. They showed photos of the dress, the venue, her mother being consoled by friends from high society. No images of her leaving. Peter clearly knew what he was doing, but Megan still didn't trust him. Not completely. That night, she slept with the door locked from the inside, and a chair pressed under the handle. Even so, she slept. For the first time in weeks. The next morning, she woke up to a notification on the tablet in the living room. New video published, trending backstage channel. Curious, she clicked. It was an anonymous exposé, with the headline, "Inside the Nissan Empire. Luxury, silence, and hidden contracts." The video showed documents, screenshots of transactions, photos from secret meetings, all edited with precision. The report exposed part of the structure Nissan was trying to keep hidden. It was just the beginning, but it was public. Peter walked into the room without saying a word. He simply looked at the screen. "This is just the beginning." Megan looked at him. That strange man, silent, soft-spoken, with sharp eyes, had just flipped the board. On a game she didn't even know she was playing. Now she had to decide. Would she keep hiding or start to fight? Megan had been in the warehouse for 3 days. The routine was simple, almost monotonous. She woke up early, took a shower, ate something from the fridge, which was always stocked. She spent the day pacing around, trying not to think about everything she had left behind. On the first day, she locked the bedroom door and pushed a chair against it. On the second, she just left the door slightly closed. On the third, she slept with it half open. Peter came and went at random hours. He brought food, supplies, information. He spent long hours in the living room, working at the computer, saying very little. He was practical, focused, quiet. But there was something about his presence that made her feel safe. He didn't try to please. He didn't invade her space. And that was enough. That night, Megan woke up from a nightmare in the middle of the night. She got up to grab a glass of water in the kitchen. The house was silent, only the sound of the wind outside. As she walked through the dark hallway, she stopped when she saw the light still on in the living room. Peter was in the leather armchair, headphones on, eyes closed, his body relaxed, as if he were in another world. His jacket was draped over the arm of the chair, and he seemed completely immersed in the sound only he could hear. She stood there for a few seconds, watching. This was the man who had pulled her out of a forced marriage, hidden her in a warehouse, and given her back silence and protection. She didn't know who he really was, or why she trusted him. But there was something in the way he occupied that space, in the absence of threat, that spoke volumes. He didn't ask for trust, but somehow, he inspired it. The next morning, while he was working on files in the living room, Megan went to make herself some coffee and decided to face the challenge of peeling an orange. She had never done it alone before. She picked up the knife carefully and started clumsily. The peel was thick. It slipped, and in a second, she felt the cut on her finger. Nothing serious, but deep enough to bleed. "Help!" she said out loud. Peter stood up immediately. "What happened?" She held out her finger, half scared, half embarrassed. "It hurts a lot." He grabbed a clean cloth and pressed it firmly against the cut. "Sit down." She did without arguing. He went to the bathroom, came back with a bandage and a practical expression. Without saying much, he cleaned the wound and began wrapping the finger. She watched him closely. His eyes were lighter than she expected, and in that instant, when he looked up to check on her, their eyes met, eye to eye, for a second longer than would normally be expected. There was no music, no words, just that moment, when everything went quiet. She took a deep breath, but didn't look away. Neither did he. It was the pain in her finger that brought her back. "Ow," she whispered, with a nervous laugh. He let out a small curve in the corner of his mouth. Maybe almost a smile. "There. You're not gonna die over an orange." "I hope not," she replied, a bit lighter. He stepped back, picked up the supplies, and went back to the computer, as if nothing had happened. But something had. Hours later, he left an envelope on the table. Inside, there were documents and screenshots of transactions linked to shell companies, registered under fake names tied to Nissan, offshore accounts, properties bought under third parties. Megan read everything in silence. "Is this real?" "It's enough to destroy him," Peter replied. "Why don't you hand it to the police?" "Because he owns people in the police. And because no one listens until someone speaks publicly. And that only you can do." She looked at him. "So you want me to expose myself?" "No. That decision is yours." That afternoon, Megan recorded her voice, distorted, reading a whistleblower letter. Peter edited a video with documents, images of contracts, and financial records, all anonymous, all precise. They uploaded it to an encrypted channel with a generic name. The next day, it was everywhere. Gossip sites, investigative accounts, news portals. Nissan's name was starting to crumble, and he felt it. Peter got a call from a hidden number. He answered. "I knew you'd be trouble. But dragging the girl into this? I thought you were better than that, scumbag." It was Nissan. "She's not being dragged in. She's in charge." Nissan laughed. "That's what you think." The next morning, a new anonymous article went viral. Model Megan Marquez may be held captive by ex-hacker wanted internationally. Peter's image was circulating. His past had resurfaced. Her name was now linked to his, in a twisted way. "Peter, what does this mean?" Megan said, throwing the tablet on the table. "What does he mean by wanted internationally? Is it true? Who are you?" Peter was silent for a few seconds. "I'm someone who's made a lot of mistakes, trying to do the right thing. And now I'm trying to do the right thing. The right way." Megan hit his chest with her fists, pushing him back. "Peter, I trusted you." He nodded. "Megan, I'll tell you everything." Her expression hardened. "Start." He pulled out a chair, sat across from her. "My name was once on the wanted list of 3 countries. Not for murder, not for drugs, but for hacking systems that didn't want to be exposed. Banks, corporations, politicians. I did it because I believed it was the only way to even the game. And now? Now I stopped. Until you showed up." She put her hands on her head. "So I pulled you back into the game?" "No. You reminded me why I got into it." They both went silent. Megan took a deep breath. "So what do we do now?" Peter stood up, walked over to the laptop, and turned the screen toward her. The image showed a woman in black, leaning against a dark car, on the other side of the street. "Now, we've got company." Megan was still staring at the frozen image on the laptop. The woman in black, leaning against the car, arms crossed, looked like she knew exactly where she was. And she wasn't there by accident. "Who is she?" Megan asked. Peter closed the laptop slowly. "Sophia. Does she know you?" He took a deep breath. "Much more than I'd like." The next day, Peter left early. He said he had to meet a contact in person to verify one of the reports they were about to publish. Megan stayed at the warehouse alone. The morning dragged. She tried to focus on something, but the image of the woman in black wouldn't leave her mind. At 2:02 p.m., someone rang the doorbell. Megan froze. She checked the security camera. It was her, Sophia. Megan hesitated, but opened the door with the security latch still on. "Hi, I'm a friend of Peter's," Sophia said with a soft smile. "He asked me to drop this off for you." She held up a flash drive between gloved fingers. "He left and didn't say anything," Megan replied, wary. "He probably didn't have time. I came a long way." Sophia took a step forward. "Can I come in for a minute? It's cold out here." Megan hesitated again, but unlocked the door. Sophia entered, as if she already knew the place. She looked around with a hint of nostalgia. "He always picked good hideouts. Reminds me of a bunker we used in Vienna years ago. Except there, we slept on emergency mattresses." Megan said nothing. She closed the door. "Do you work with him?" "I used to. For a long time. Investigations, infiltrations, high-risk operations. I was the tech brain. He was the action." Sophia placed the flash drive on the kitchen table. "This has files that might help with the Nissan case." "And why are you helping?" Sophia stared at Megan for a moment. "Because he cares about you, and that's a problem." Megan frowned. "What do you mean?" "Peter never gets involved. Never gets attached. Never strays from the plan. Until now." Megan crossed her arms. "What does that have to do with me?" Sophia let out a humorless laugh. She turned, glancing at the bookshelf. "You know what's funny? When he saved my life in Berlin, he didn't do it out of duty. He did it because he wanted to. But when I got too close, he disappeared for months." She turned back to Megan. "I just came to say this. Be careful. When he gets tired, he vanishes. And you might be the next forgotten chapter in his story." Before Megan could respond, Sophia grabbed her sunglasses and put them on. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Megan." She walked out, without looking back. When Peter returned, he found Megan sitting on the couch, pensive, tense. He felt the shift in the air. Before saying a word, "She was here," Megan said, not looking at him. Peter stopped in the middle of the room. "Sophia?" She nodded. Walked in like she already knew everything. Said you saved her. That you worked together. Said you never stay. That you got involved, then disappeared. Silence. "And ever since she left, I can't stop thinking about it. That you might vanish at any moment. That maybe all of this is just another mission. And I'm just another piece on the board." She stood up. "I know how to protect myself now. I just wanted to make that clear." Peter took a step forward. "Megan," she raised her hand, stopping him. "I need to think, Peter. Just give me space." Peter respected that. He stepped back, walked to the counter, and grabbed a bottle of water. Silence. A few minutes passed. He took a deep breath. "It wasn't love," he said without looking at her. "It never was." Sophia mistook loyalty for emotion. And when she realized I didn't feel the same, she tried to control everything around us. Pulled away. She didn't get it. And ever since, she's tried to stay close. Not always out of revenge. Sometimes just wounded pride. Megan stayed silent, but her hands were no longer clenched. Peter slowly walked over and placed something on the table. A small white package. "I picked this up earlier. Thought you might like it." It was a bag of lemon drops, the exact kind she used to manage anxiety. During photo shoots, she had never told him that. She looked at the bag, then at him. How did you know? I pay attention. Megan was speechless. Peter turned to walk back to the living room, but he tripped slightly over the rug she had pulled earlier to clean the floor. Startled, he lost his balance and fell straight onto the couch cushion. Her eyes widened. He grimaced, hand on his back. Ow! That was humiliating, he muttered. Megan couldn't hold it in. She laughed, loudly. For the first time since arriving at the warehouse, she laughed for real. Are you okay? Just my ego. She laughed again, stepped closer, still laughing, and offered her hand to help him up. He took it. They stayed like that for a moment, eye to eye, her hand still in his. Thanks for the candy, she whispered. You're welcome. He stood up, and neither let go. For a second longer than they needed to. Only then did she release his hand, slowly. Something between them had shifted. No words, no declarations, but the distance was smaller now, and she could feel it. As much as Sophia had stepped into that space, she wasn't the one who filled it. The interference alarms went off on Peter's phone. At exactly 2:14 a.m., he jumped up. The system had detected unusual movement near the perimeter of the warehouse. Megan was sleeping deeply. Peter ran up the stairs, crossed the hallway without turning on any lights. He opened the bedroom door urgently and found her curled up under a light blanket. He touched her shoulder. Megan, wake up. We're in danger. We have to go. Now. She opened her eyes, startled. Still half asleep, she tried to understand what was happening. But his tone left no doubt. She got up immediately. He grabbed her hand, and the two rushed down the stairs. Peter opened the back door and activated the panel next to the hidden garage. The car was already ready. Get in. Quick. As soon as the doors closed, he sped off through a hidden route. Behind the warehouse, leaving everything behind. On his phone screen, a live image, 3 black cars approaching the main entrance. Nissan hadn't wasted any time. Megan looked through the rearview mirror and felt her body go cold. Were they coming for us? Yes, but they won't find anything there. And if they do, all they'll see is empty walls. I didn't leave a trace. She stayed silent, gripping her seatbelt like it was her anchor. Hours later, the car climbed a rocky road, hidden between 2 cliffs. The landscape was harsh, scattered trees, jagged rocks. Megan had already lost track of where they were. Peter then turned left, onto an almost invisible path, between 2 massive boulders. The vegetation was thick, and it seemed impossible. There could be anything there. But a rock silently shifted. At his touch on a hidden panel, revealing an entrance, he drove through the opening, until they reached a wide cave, with stone columns, and architecture blended into nature. Built-in garage, soft lighting, absolute silence. A sanctuary. This is the only place no one knows exists. Here you're truly safe. Megan stepped out of the car silently. She looked around, in awe and disbelief. Felt like entering another world. Peter nodded, and walked toward the main entrance. He opened the door with a digital touch. Come on, I'll show you the house. The interior was even more impressive. Suspended fireplace, floor-to-ceiling glass, with a view of the canyons, a spacious living room, modern design, light furniture contrasting with stone walls. Warm lighting gave the space cozy, almost magical atmosphere. This is surreal, Megan said, eyes shining. I've never brought anyone here before. She looked at him, surprised. Why me? Because you broke the rules. And because I had no choice. She smiled, unsure if it was a compliment or not. Come, I'll show you the bedroom. Try to get some sleep. In the living room, he collapsed into the armchair and ran his hands over his face. The tension wasn't just from the risk. It was also because he had brought her here. He'd broken his own rule. This was his refuge. Through the cracked door of the bedroom, he caught a glimpse of Megan, changing her shirt, reflected in the glass. He tried to look away, but stood frozen. There was something about that moment, like a dance, a mix of vulnerability and presence, that stirred something in him. The next morning, Megan woke up early, walked barefoot down the stairs, and found Peter making coffee. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I expected." She grabbed the mug, but instead of sitting, leaned against the doorway. "It was Nissan, wasn't it?" "Yes." He went to the warehouse, searched everything, but found nothing. "Sophia." She told him where we were? Apparently, out of anger, jealousy, I don't know how far she'll go. But Nissan, he doesn't just want revenge. He wants to erase anything that could incriminate him. So what now? Now, we stay here until everything is ready. My contacts are already in motion, but it'll take a few days. Megan was silent for a moment, gazing at the vast mountains outside. "Then let's enjoy it. Since we're stuck here, at least there's good coffee and a nice view." He laughed. "Only thing missing in this house is a pool. Come with me." Peter led her downstairs and revealed an even more stunning space, an indoor pool, built into the rocks. When they got close, he playfully pushed her into the heated water. She screamed, "You're insane. It was my only dry outfit. Guess you'll have to wear the bed sheets now," he said, teasing. She laughed, splashed water at him, and without thinking, he jumped in too. As he came up from the water, he bumped into Megan, who slipped and almost fell again. He caught her by the waist. Being that close, her body against his, sparked something. They looked at each other, eyes locked. Silence. His gaze dropped to her lips. Slowly, intentionally, he moved closer. The kiss happened, as if time had stopped. No music, no script, just two hearts that had already surrendered, in secret, days ago. Peter slowly pulled away, his eyes still locked on hers. He took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "I'll get you a towel," he said, in a tone more restrained than he wanted. Megan stayed there, in the warm water, silent. Her skin still tingled, not from the temperature, but from the storm building inside. She leaned against the stone edge of the pool, chin resting on her hands, replaying the scene in a loop. It wasn't just the kiss. It was everything he carried. Later, dry and freshly showered, they sat together in the living room, in front of the fireplace. She came in wearing a loose t-shirt and sweatpants, barefoot. Peter sat across from her, his hair still damp, focused on the laptop in front of him. He broke the silence. "I've done everything I could remotely. Now I have to wait for replies. My contacts are in motion, each doing their part. In the meantime, all we can do is wait." Megan nodded, wrapped in a blanket. She knew she couldn't go out, couldn't return. If she did, she'd fall straight into Nissan's trap. Her mother still seemed to be on his side, and she only trusted Peter now. The following days became an unexpectedly light routine. Megan began exploring the house. They cooked together, read by the fireplace, watched old movies projected on the stone wall. Peter showed her a hidden workshop, behind the garage, where he fixed drones and security prototypes. She, in turn, taught him how to make pancakes, and laughed when he burned the first one. At night, the mood changed, quieter, more intimate. Megan slept better there than in any five-star hotel she'd ever stayed in. Sometimes she'd wake up in the middle of the night and find him sitting in the armchair, headphones on, eyes closed, only the soft sound of music and the gentle glow of the house lights. He looked peaceful, as if that hideout were the only place in the world where he could breathe. Meanwhile, on the outside, the war continued. Nissan was furious. The warehouse had been found, just as Sophia had promised. But Megan was gone. Only a forgotten wedding dress, some clothes, and signs the place had been abandoned in a hurry. It wasn't enough. Sophia wanted more money, demanded it, threatened, said she knew more. Nissan ignored her. She pushed harder. And the next day, on a sharp curve along the coastal highway, her car lost its brakes. Police called it an accident. But when Peter got the news, he had no doubt. Nissan had started cleaning up loose ends. Worse, his plan to twist the narrative was working. Gossip sites reported that Megan had been kidnapped by a dangerous hacker. The press, fed by fake dossiers, painted Peter as a cold criminal with an international record and ties to money laundering. Megan, the victim, was now seen as an accomplice. At the house, she watched it all on the tablet. Silent. "He's winning, isn't he?" she asked one evening, while Peter updated the security system. "Not for long. It only looks that way." He sighed. "All of this is just noise before the collapse." She sat beside him. "You really believe that?" "I do. But I'll admit, I didn't think it'd be this hard." Megan stayed quiet, then smiled. "We should play something. Cards, maybe. You look like someone who's cheated a lot in poker games." He laughed for the first time in days. "I can neither confirm nor deny. During the game, she cheated on purpose, just to tease him. He pretended not to notice, then stole one of her cards, and denied it with the most innocent face. 'See? It's in your blood,' she said, laughing. 'You started it.' That night, they slept closer. He on the living room couch, she on the opposite one. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. She told him about her father, her dreams, the campaigns, the disappointments. He told her about his tough childhood, the orphanage, the escapes, the hidden victories. "Never thought I'd tell anyone this," he said, eyes fixed on the fireplace. "I never thought I'd trust someone this much," she replied. The next morning, an email alert popped up on Peter's laptop. It was the message he'd been waiting for. A former employee of Megan's father had reached out. He said he knew of a real will, hidden, that something was wrong in how Nissan had taken over the business, that the family lawyer was coerced, and there were documents proving the manipulation. Peter called Megan. "It's time." She came closer, heart racing. "Do you trust this man? He was your father's right hand. Nissan pushed him out, but he has documents, and he wants to help." "Why now?" "Because now he knows you're still alive, and he wants justice." She sat down. "What do we need to do?" "Arrange a meeting. Neutral place. Safe." "But I can't go with you?" "Because I'm the wanted kidnapper, according to the world. If I show up with you, no one will listen." Megan understood. She swallowed hard. "So I go alone?" "No. You'll go with someone you trust deeply." She frowned. "Who?" Peter opened an envelope. Inside, a note, handwritten. It was her mother's handwriting. "Trust me. I was never on his side." Megan's eyes widened. "What?" "We have another ally, and she's closer than you think." Megan couldn't believe it. She stared at her mother's note for a few seconds, as if it were fake. This is real?" Peter nodded. "She contacted me a few days ago, using a secure encrypted line. She said she was pretending to support Nissan, but was actually undercover, gathering evidence. Since the night you ran away, she was waiting for the right moment. And why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because even I didn't know if I could trust her." But when she delivered the forged contract and the recording of the coerced lawyer, I realized she was playing the same game, just from the inside. Megan held the note tightly. "We need to meet her." She chose a place. Says she has everything. Copies of the real will, recordings, hidden accounts, illegal payments, enough proof to bring Nissan down. Where? A country house. Outside the city. Isolated. Discreet. When? Tomorrow. That night, Megan barely slept. She replayed her childhood, the forced smiles from her mother, the coldness of the past months. She tried to understand. If behind all the vanity, there was still love. If what she had always felt as abandonment had actually been sacrifice. At sunrise, she dressed in simple clothes and wore a cap to disguise herself. Peter handed her a new phone and a necklace with a built-in tracker. If anything happens, call me. I'll be nearby, but you'll go with someone from my team. Someone I trust completely. You're not coming? I told you. If I show up, I put everything at risk. But I'll be protecting you from a distance. Promise. On the way, Megan stared out the window, trying to organize her thoughts. When they reached the house, the door opened. Before she could even knock, Amelia was there. Hair pulled into a simple bun. Plain clothes. No makeup. For the first time, Megan saw her mother as a real woman, not the polished image of a socialite, framed in diamonds. Mom? Megan, Amelia said, teary-eyed. They stood there, facing each other, until Megan ran and hugged her. Amelia held her tightly, like someone asking for forgiveness, without saying a word. You knew everything? Since the night of the engagement dinner, I overheard a conversation between him and a partner. That's when I found out your father. She paused to breathe. Didn't die by accident. Nissan planned everything. Drugged the pilot. He wanted to eliminate any obstacles, to take control of the fortune, and marry you without resistance. Megan staggered back. No, I pretended to agree with everything. Accepted the invitations, the dinners, even wore the jewelry he sent. But I was listening, recording, saving everything. When you disappeared, I knew it was time. Why didn't you tell me? Because he monitored everything. Every message, every call. Couldn't risk it. Amelia touched her daughter's face. But now I have everything. And you're going to have justice. You're going to have your life back. They went inside. Amelia opened a safe hidden behind a false wall. Inside were the original will documents, copies of illegal deposits, forged contracts, and a flash drive with video recordings of compromising conversations between Nissan and board members from Megan's father's company. This, Amelia said, is the end of him. Megan cried silently, partly from relief, partly because she didn't know how to move on after all of this. Hours later, at a nearby meeting point, Peter waited inside the car. When Megan got in, she dropped the documents onto his lap. Now he's going down. Are you ready for this? She nodded. For the first time in my life, yes. Peter started the engine. Then let's do it. The plan was simple. Deliver everything to an investigative journalist who had already exposed politicians and corporate giants. A woman who, like Megan, had once been silenced. She wasn't for sale, and she was ready. 2 days later, the scandal exploded. Headlines flooded the media. Nissan Martello accused of faking death, coercing lawyer, and stealing model's fortune. Ex-fiancé speaks out. I was used, but my father left everything to me. Model's mother infiltrated scheme, delivered videos, audio, and explosive documents. Nissan tried to flee, but was arrested, attempting to board a plane with a fake ID. Megan had won. In court, the real will was validated. Her father's fortune returned. Nissan's assets frozen. His accomplices indicted. Amelia testified with dignity. Leaving the courthouse, she hugged her daughter and whispered, "Forgive me. I did it the wrong way, but it was always for you. Peter wasn't there. He watched from afar. But at sunset, in the garden of Megan's new home, he appeared. Megan ran to him, smiling for the first time in a long while. Peter, he opened his arms. It all worked out. She hugged him tightly, and the most honest thing she could say in that moment was, "Thank you, Peter." Outside, the garden was in bloom, despite the uncertain season. Megan walked barefoot along the stone path, holding a freshly brewed cup of coffee. The sun touched her skin, as if the world had started spinning again. For the first time in months, she felt time pass without fear. No chasing, no shadows. The media was still buzzing with the scandal. Nissan was in prison, his allies too. Social media was torn between support and speculation. But Megan no longer read the comments. She no longer tried to understand what the world thought of her. She only wanted to understand herself. The house was new, discreet, surrounded by greenery, with wide windows that let the sky in. It was a symbolic gift from her mother, a gesture of starting over. Amelia now lived in another city, far from the spotlight. They kept in touch. Messages, short calls, some longer conversations. There were still wounds, but there was affection too. In the kitchen, Peter always showed up with something new. A different coffee, homemade bread, a recipe he'd learned from old videos on his phone. He tried to act casual, but it was clear he was putting in effort to turn that house into a home. "You're very quiet," he said, seeing her standing still on the porch. "I'm listening to what the world's been trying to tell me all this time," she replied without taking her eyes off the sky. Peter leaned beside her. "And what does it say?" "That I survived. And now, I need to live." He nodded. "Have you thought about what you want to do?" Megan turned slightly toward him. "I don't want to go back to being a fashion puppet, but I want to show I'm more than those bought contracts from the past. I want to work with purpose, build my own brand, my own pace." "You will. People don't follow just pretty faces. They follow truth." "And you? Me? Are you going back to the shadows?" He laughed, a bit awkward. "No, I'm tired of hiding, of pretending not to care, of always being ready to run. I think I want something simple now, something more human." She looked at him. "Like a garden and 2 dogs? Maybe 3 dogs," he said, laughing. They both laughed, but soon, their deep gaze turned the smile into a soft, slow, honest kiss. In the days that followed, Megan began planning her own campaign, not to sell products, but to tell stories, real stories, of women who had been silenced, stories like hers. She founded Ray Eyes, a brand with a minimalist, elegant, and meaningful approach. Her first project was a photo editorial featuring women who had overcome hard experiences, abuse, abandonment, new beginnings. And she wasn't just the lead model. She was the creative director, the writer, the ambassador. Peter worked behind the scenes. He handled digital security, contracts, logistics, but most of all, he was there, present, steady. At night, they sat on the porch with a glass of wine. They didn't talk much, but they felt deeply, and that was enough. One day, while Megan adjusted the lighting for a new photo session at home, she received an envelope. No return address. Inside, a handwritten letter. "You were reborn in front of everyone, Megan, but you gave me the chance to exist outside the dark. You taught me that security isn't just protection. It's allowing someone to bloom. You are my safe place. You always will be. P." She read it over and over, then found him in the living room, sitting with a book in his hands. "You know," she began, "I never felt like I was enough. Not even when I was on magazine covers. Not when I got flowers and flashes. Peter looked at her. And now? She smiled. Now, I feel alive. He closed the book, walked over to her, took her hand gently, and right there, in the middle of the room, without music, without cameras, the two of them danced in silence. The world outside still had chaos, noise, and expectations. But in that moment, what they had built needed none of it. Megan was no longer the runaway bride. She was the woman who chose to stay. Time passed. Not much, but enough for the world to have moved on. To new scandals and headlines. The story of Meghan Markle was still mentioned, but now as a symbol of courage. A woman who rejected fake fame, exposed a corrupt empire, and redefined everything. But she was still here, living where satellites didn't see, where the curious couldn't reach, where only those chosen could enter. The house in the mountains, hidden among rocks and canyons, remained her refuge. But now, with flowers on the windowsills, new pictures on the walls, a different scent in the air, and a man who knew exactly when to hold silence and when to offer it. Peter was sitting on the living room floor, working on a new project. He had left behind the old systems. Now he was using his skills to build digital security for NGOs, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Meghan appeared in the kitchen, her hair loosely tied, wearing an oversized t-shirt, ice serene. She was making tea, humming a soft tune she had learned from her grandmother, a melody that was now returning to memory. I got a proposal, she said, sitting beside him. A job offer? A life offer. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? A publisher wants to turn my story into a book. But I don't want to tell it as a victim. I want to tell it as a woman who survived, who saw the worst and still believed in love, who ran from the altar and found a home. Peter stayed silent for a few seconds. And will you tell everything? Everything that matters. And what needs to remain secret? I'll leave between us. He smiled. One of those rare, crooked smiles. The kind that says more than a speech. Meghan picked up a photo from the shelf. It was of the two of them, taken with a timer, the mountain view behind them. She wore a linen dress. He wore a wrinkled black shirt. They weren't posing, just laughing, just being. I never wanted a forced happy ending, she said. I just wanted a beginning that was real. He pulled her closer. And did you find it? More than that. I found someone who saw me, not as a trophy, but as a soul. He touched her face gently. And I found someone who made me stop running. The sun began to set. The house turned orange inside. The fireplace glowed. The mountains outside, bathed in soft light. You know, he said, I think we can stay invisible to the world, but fully present for each other. Invisible is the new luxury, Meghan replied, laughing. And they kissed. No urgency, no fear. There, among the rocks, among secrets, between two broken stories, that found a moment of peace. The couple no one could find, now didn't want to be found, because the greatest freedom was the choice to live in silence, and the greatest proof of love was not needing to prove anything to anyone. Time passed differently. In that house among the stones, there was no rush, no noise from the outside world. It was as if life had found its own rhythm there, made of silence, laughter, and plans born over breakfast, and shaped by sunset. Meghan was now a well-known name in the fashion world, not for scandals or her last name, but for talent. She had built her own brand, minimalist, elegant, sustainable pieces, all designed by her, made for women who needed to remember who they were. The story of the bride who ran away was still remembered, but it no longer defined her. Now, she was on magazine covers, because she earned it, And whenever someone asked where she found inspiration, she smiled and said, "In a place where no one could find me, and where I finally found myself." Peter, on the other hand, had become a legend. He founded a cybersecurity firm, focused on protecting victims of stalking, blackmail, and online abuse. He declined interviews, lived discreetly, but was sought after by organizations all over the world. Everything remote, everything efficient, always with the same mission, justice without the spotlight. They continued living in the mountain house, still isolated, but now by choice. When needed, they went to the city for a few days, but they always counted the minutes until they could return, because nothing in the world offered more luxury than that place only they knew and now shared. One ordinary afternoon, after a light lunch and a walk to the edge of the canyon, Megan walked into the living room and found a note on the table. "Go to the balcony. Dress code. White sheet." She smiled, one of those smiles when you already know what's coming, but want it anyway. Outside, she found Peter, wearing a white shirt, light pants, barefoot, and around his neck, a black ribbon tied like a bow tie. "This is the fanciest thing I had," he said, adjusting the ribbon proudly. She laughed, clean, carefree laugh. "And I guess I'm supposed to wear this," she said, wrapping herself in the white sheet, tying it behind her back like a dress. On the smooth stone floor, Peter had placed a few candles and scattered flower petals. 2 glasses, a folded napkin, held 2 rings, handmade by a mountain village craftsman. "Do we have guests?" she asked. "Yes, we do." He pointed to the sky, the sun, the breeze, and the mountains, only the important ones. She walked up to him and stayed silent for a moment. "No priest? We have someone who believes," Peter answered. "And that's enough." They stood face to face. He held her hands. "Megan Marquez, you're the only woman who ever made me want to stay. Not run, not hide, not disappear. Just stay. And if I belong to anyone in this life, let it be to you. Only you." She swallowed hard. "Peter, you showed up on the worst day of my life and turned it into a beginning. I don't have grand promises or perfect plans, but I have a whole heart, and it's yours, with a sheet, a ribbon, or just skin, until the end." He placed the ring on her finger. She placed his. There was no dramatic kiss, no applause, just a long embrace, the kind that seals not just a day, but a lifetime. That night, they drank wine and danced barefoot to an old playlist, just the 2 of them, and the vastness of that place. They fell asleep on the balcony, wrapped in each other, in silence, and there, among the rocks, the wind, and a sky full of stars, they sealed what might be the only kind of love worth holding on to, the kind that doesn't need an audience, a signature, or an altar. The love that belongs to only 2 people. The love that, even invisible, is the most real of all.
I'm so glad you made it this far. Tell us in the comments which part of this story touched you the most. And don't forget to leave your rating from 0 to 10. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next stories. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this journey with us.